Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here in service in our community. We ask your guidance and wisdom as we discuss the matters before us today. May your decisions reflect fairness, compassion, and a commitment to the common good. Grant us patience in our deliberations, clarity in our judgments, and unity in our purpose. Bless this town, its residents, and those who serve it. May peace and cooperation guide us in all that we do. Amen. Amen. Call this meeting to order. First off is pledge. Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you do it? Okay, first thing on the agenda is the oath of office. Could Maurice Lipscomb, could you come forward?
You want his family to come up with
Yeah. Bring your family too if you want to.
Yeah, any family that want to come up with them can come.
Officer Lipscomb, would you like to say a few words?
No, sir, I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Are you really sure? I just. Come on now. Next on the agenda is the January 2025 financials.
Okay, so as you may have heard, Angie cannot make it this evening. Just a moment. So I have notes. We will go through the financials. If you have questions, I will answer them to the best of my ability, or we will get them answered after this meeting. So at the end of January, revenues were 67% and expenditures were 59%, leaving 1.596 positive variance for the budget at the end of January. This next slide is simply the expenditures and revenues versus budgeted amounts for each fund. At the end of January, Fund 31, which is electric, did have a bit of a negative variance. I haven't looked at the financials as of today, but I do feel like when I looked at them last week, that may have started to iron itself out. Again, I can get that information. Let's see, there's the general funds. Sorry, guys. So again, this is just a more detailed funds revenue and expenditures month by month for each of the general funds. So not the enterprise funds, water, sewer, and electric, but for 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, there's a month by month. For 23, 24, and then the bottom is current to date for 24, 25. DMV property taxes for the month of January collection was $594,616.07. And all other taxes for the month of January was $90,482.75. Again, on the sheets you have in front of you, those are broken down for last fiscal year as well as month to date for this fiscal year. Again, same thing as I said before. Here's the breakdown last year to this year. This is for Fund 30, Water Sewer. And we have the exact same thing for 31, the electric. That's where you can see the current negative variance in that department. But as I stated, I feel like that has already started to iron itself out as of last week when I pulled financials for the budget process.
Taylor, do we think that that's 4 months that we've been in a negative in that fund for electric? Is that due to growth that we're paying for development that we're not expecting to get any kind of return on? So are we looking at coming out negative at the end of this budget year because of that so far? Because we're, 7 months in right now? Or do you think we're gonna recoup any of those costs?
Again, like I said, I truly feel like when I looked at the bottom lines last week, it was not in the negative. And I don't know if it's that electric sales is finally catching up with the expenditures, because there was a lot of capital expenditures for the necessary materials and supplies for the subdivisions we have that are now in full swing. ABJ Phase 3, the last of the subdivisions that were approved before the fees were put in place. So yes, those are funds we are still not going to recoup for expenditures we had to put out. That being said, if you look at the last November, December, January, the variance is actually improving even in that time frame. And like the November, December time frame, we had to do a lot of purchases for the transformers when we can get our hands on them, a lot of those big ticket items. So I think that that is going to continue to level itself back out with the revenue coming in on electric.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions that I may be able to fumble my way through?
Thanks very much.
Of course.
One more question.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know if you did this report to Kim or who, because I know we don't have finance right now. This really is not the full picture if we don't get a balance sheet. So can we get balance sheets with these?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I can get that done.
All right, thank
I
you.
can get it done for you. How's that?
All right, thank you, Kevin.
Next on the agenda is department reports. Do we have anybody who wants to talk about department report?
I got 2 questions, and I think only one department head's here. So I'm gonna start with Matt, and I don't think it's a question as much for Matt, but if y'all read his report, he did ask a question of us and about the old Civic Center, since we're talking about moving into the OCLC, and I've been getting questions as well from some citizens around. I think he has as well, or at least he put it in his report. Have we had any discussion about what's gonna happen with that structure when we get done? Or has the town staff had any?
We brought it up, I think, towards the middle or end of last year, and it was just a discussion when we were also talking about this building of what do we want to see going forward. Kim and I have discussed it, and we would love to look into possibly being able to sell that property and split the plot, so where we keep the civic center fields, we split the parking lot. But if somebody would want to come in and use that property, because again, we are moving out of it, it's not something that we see a current need for going forward. But again, that is completely up to you all, and we will do whatever you see fit, but that is something that we've been looking at for that building.
I've got that down on the agenda for this. I reckon the Saturday meeting is when these things are gonna come out. We've talked about it, and there's 3 organizations out there that's been out there before Parks and Rec was out there, or one or two of them have, and, it's something that we do not need to wait any longer or to the last minute, because we're gonna be moving out of there in 6 months, and then we're gonna be hit, well, what do we do? And, I understand they're nonprofit, and I don't know, how many of them pay the town anything at all, if any of them. But, I think that ought to be on the agenda for Saturday to be a big discussion, along with some other things that we've got coming up. I mean, we don't wanna end up just like we did with the theater. Something happens and then
Right.
we get, hit from all sides about, well, we didn't know that, this wasn't being done and that wasn't being done. We really need to take a look at it and get some idea of what we need to do with that building.
Yeah, and we would love, again, the organizations that are in there are wonderful organizations needed in the community. We would love, if one of them would even be interested, right, in taking over the building and moving forward with that. We would love to look at those opportunities, and we'll talk about it at the retreat and see which direction you all would like us to move forward with that. I think that's a great idea.
So what organizations are out there right now?
Closed pantry and closet.
Yeah, the clothes closet,
Bama?
food pantry, and
Senior
Aging.
center, Aging.
Fulton on Aging's been out there forever, and they have got a big support group that go and do things out there.
I guess we'll talk about that.
yeah, we can add it.
Can we continue with my questions, or?
Sure,
I
go
got
ahead.
I got two more. Thought one. Code enforcement, I don't know if Mark's here or not. Is Mark here? Mark's not here.
What you got?
There was a lot of cars, junk cars on this list for this month. What is, I understand the lien process against houses and stuff, and Mike can answer this. All of these junk cars and stuff that he's identifying, what is our policy and how do we get or handle those? I just don't know what the policy is for all those junk cars on property. Do you just fine them? Is that kind of the plan?
Well, that's nuisance abatement,
Okay.
so I mean, I guess the procedure would be the same with
Okay.
any other, send them letters, cite them, and you can simply fine them, but you can tow cars as well, there's a procedure for that.
Okay. I didn't know if we would want to be towing and storing cars. That was the only thing that my fear was. I assume you have them towed by a private
We've
company.
tried to avoid that in the past and work with owners to
Okay.
get them to do that voluntarily, just like most other things, but that's a lot cheaper, but.
Okay. All right.
They're allowed to have one, right? I remember some of this stuff was down 242. I think they're allowed to have one vehicle, as far as the ordinances.
One vehicle, what, on their property?
Yeah, that's not in use, but it's gotta be, what was it, tagged and all that
Yeah,
good stuff.
yeah, it doesn't have to be operational.
Right.
I think, I don't know if there's a limit on the number you can have. I think within a certain amount, even if they're tagged, you can get,
Right.
they could be in violation of the ordinance. I don't know whether, exactly how many that is. We've got into that before, but if they're junk, then, they're potentially, in violation of the ordinance. If they're not tagged and all that.
And I will say to that, not a junk car, but again, a testament to Mark. He had some dealings this week about the removal of an item. And he just sent a very nice, concise email to the owner stating everything we had done to resolve the issue to this point, and did say, if it's not resolved by X, we are going to have to remove it ourselves. And, the owner has been wonderfully gracious since that email came out, and they are moving the item. So here's to hoping that, most of the cases go that way. Of course, there's gonna be ones that don't, but again, Mark is doing his due diligence to get things handled as graciously as possible.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Ike and Kayla. My last question is for Human Resources, and Scott's not here either, so I'm gonna point at you again.
What you got?
Finance Director, it seems like we've got that position posted and we don't have any applications at this time, is that correct?
We are in the works with the finance position. I'm going to wait for Kim to get back to give some more details on that, but
that-
just know we are
Would that
working
expl-
on.
Would that be, explain why the other open position, because right now we don't have anybody in finance, right? And the other open position, which is the finance tech, is not posted at this time according to his report. Is that-
Correct, because we were waiting for the finance director to come in and assess the department and see truly what the needs of that finance tech position were internally and operationally, so that then when it's posted, they can really craft who's coming in to make sure they fit that spot. Since we haven't been able to do that with a director, we haven't hired that position yet, because we want to have the managerial supervisory handled before we bring an additional body into that office. But I will say, as far as the finance director goes, like I said, we are working on some things, and Kim will disclose and talk to everybody about it when she gets back.
Okay,
Is that an acceptable answer?
for right now, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, I'm done, Mayor, sorry about that.
No problem, no problem. So if there's no other discussion about department reports, we'll move on to items for discussion. The first one is discussion of hotline, tree trimming. Mr. Glenn Core.
So I'm going to start with a preface. At the end of 2024, we sent out a request for proposals for hotline tree trimming for the town. Glenn has reviewed those. He has since found a company that best fits the town's needs. We are prepared to move forward with that company and enter a purchase order. But due to the cost associated with this specialized work, before we submitted that requisition for a purchase order to come in front of the board, I really thought it would be beneficial to have the subject matter expert himself come and talk about the hotline trimming needs, the recent events that have caused a bit of a more urgency to get this done for the town, the reason we need an external contractor to come in and do it, and also how he made the decision of who he would like to bring in for this work.
Good evening. So what you see on the screen, it happened about 2 weeks ago over behind Chief Johnson's property. This little incident cost us about $23,000 to have repaired. It's about 2 poles broke and about 3,000 feet of wire on the ground. So tree trimming is crucial. We haven't had any trimmed in about 2 years, a little over 2 years. So it's time to get back and nail down what we want to do. The trimmer that has put in, he's local. I think he'd make it his own, so to speak. I think will be able to handle the work. Burford's worked for us before. They did not send us anything that they wanted to come back, so we've moved on from them. Do you have any questions?
Do we budget a certain amount every year for the tree trimming that's in our electrical budget?
We have, it's not dedicated in a line simply for tree trimming, but yes, in operational maintenance, there is money.
So taking this on won't make those red numbers get higher?
Budget-wise, no. What we have spent for, I don't want to say that across the board, because what I have budgeted, no, but with the additional expenses for the projects we talked about earlier that we are still incurring, I don't want to make that a blanket comment, but it was budgeted in the original operational budget.
Okay, all right.
We have taken care of some hot trimming. Hot trimming is a little different than just taking trees down in the right-of-way. It's dangerous. Safety is crucial. So the company I have picked, being local, they'll have to stand by the rules that we have, or they will be dismissed. Safety is paramount. So, and it is the worst trimming you can do. But Burford's got a lot out of the way for us, and we spent a pretty good amount of money to get them to do what they did. But moving forward, we need to go ahead and get this done and take care of it, and maintain it.
This new group got the equipment that is needed, Glenn.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I know
sir.
the other ones had trucks all over the road, but I didn't think they did such a hot job of anything that they did.
They were a big company, and I think we ended up spending quite a lot of money with them. They did some good trimming. They did some, some not so good trimming. That's why I think a more of a hometown company would take care of the needs, because he's from here. look after it. And also after hours. After hours, if I call Burford's, which is a global company, you know, they may have a truck 2 hours away, but this gentleman's 30 minutes away. So that means a lot in restoration, really does.
Will this be bidded kind of like our contract and be an on-call basis, or is this an annual price per year?
No, this is just, he submitted his price sheet for whatever work Glenn requests, whether it's the crews, the hours, the equipment needed. So this is just more of we're keying a purchase order for the amount that we have to spend, and Glenn can call him in to trim as needed. It's not an official on-call contract because this is just services. It's not an emergency on-call contract. This is just normal maintenance services.
But if we had an emergency like we did on Main Street last year with the wind and the stuff, they would be the ones that would come in that could handle it?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
They have already said that they would be willing to do that. It's just we're not entering that formal
And you kind of know
contract with
these
them.
boys work
Yes, sir.
from
Yes,
other
sir.
places.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, there's several of the guys down at the shop, they know this gentleman, and I've seen some of his work, and he's really seems to be an outstanding guy.
Don't have anybody like Bobby working for you.
No, the Bobbies are gone. That's
Okay,
what's
right.
so bad. Yeah, he was good for us.
I got a question. Well, the tree that's down on the lines, was that even in our right of way?
That was not.
I didn't think it was.
That's right. That was good notice.
And
And
we did
honestly, if
discuss
we
that,
had
but it
been
was a
out
great
there,
visual aid.
Huh?
I said, we did discuss that,
Yeah,
but it was a great
There
visual
ain't no
aid.
way that tree was in the right of way.
yep. And those are, that's the way it happens, you know. If we had been standing beside it, I could say we could have cut it because it was on somebody's property we might could have made an arrangement with. But if it's off the 15 feet or whatever we have at that time, we can't touch it.
And Glenn and his crew, they are doing their best to trim as they can, as they have, I'm gonna say, free time. But with everything they're doing, installations, the subdivisions, the new businesses coming in, it's truthfully something they can't keep up with, as well as continue everything else they have. So that's why it's really essential we get somebody in here who can be dedicated to getting this work done.
We have really been lucky this year. Lucky or blessed, whichever one you want to use. We went through 2 potential ice storms, a hurricane last year with no trimming. And we've really been lucky. I don't want to push that too much further.
So if there aren't any questions, we will key a purchase order for the initial amount for him to come in and do the work. So when you guys do see it come across, I just wanted everybody to be prepared for when it comes through. So are there any questions?
I got a question for Ike. Legally, something that's not on somebody else's property.
Yes, yeah, you can, under a nuisance abatement theory, you could proceed with that, if it was threatening to public rights of way or posed danger to, health or life
Right.
or property, then you could proceed under a nuisance abatement theory and even potentially, I mean, you would need to notice them and, hopefully get them to comply voluntarily. I think that's what most municipalities try to get you to do. If it was extremely dire and an emergency situation, you could summarily abate the nuisance. I would feel better if it was an emergency than if it was just a concern without getting the property owner to do it. But yes, you could, under nuisance abatement, you could force them to cut the tree.
Okay. Would it be another property owner? Could they incur the damages their tree caused?
Yes, yeah, if you've got possibly. I wanna say it's not a strict liability for any time a tree falls from your property and damages something on somebody else's. The test generally, I can't recite chapter and verse of it off the top of my head, but essentially, if you should have known, if it was clearly a diseased tree, or if you had actual notice, if someone had sent you a letter or a note, like, for instance, if the town sent a letter saying, we've noticed this tree is concerning, it's dead or diseased, it looks to be a potential cause for concern, it's in threatening power lines or other property, you need to cut it, and then they didn't, then that could be used as a theory to go civilly for the cost of what the harm that was caused. Otherwise, it would have to be just a extremely obvious leaning dead tree or something like that, everybody saw and they didn't do anything about it.
So when they're trimming the right of way, I mean, obviously you can't go on a person's property, but are they looking at other trees around it? Because I'm assuming they're pine trees and
Yeah.
they get 90 feet and stuff
Right.
like that. Are they looking at other trees?
Yes, sir. And honestly, that right of way's been clean. As you can see, most of it in the area is clean, so we haven't been out there in a while. That's at the cell tower at the back of where I-40 and I-95 come together, so that's not a place that we often drive by much, so it was just missed.
And again, this was, 2 weeks ago?
weeks
When
ago.
we had the very severe straight line winds coming through. So again, it was one of those acts of God where that tree
Yeah.
probably could have hung on a little while longer, but with that severe wind coming in, that was just the perfect catalyst to get it back at the top of our radar and get in gear to get this work done.
We're very lucky that pole wasn't broken. It was almost a 3-pole. Probably the next time, if it does, it will break that one. The one that's hanging has been broke several times. That's just the nature of right-of-ways.
Just
I
to
wish
reiterate though, on that last point, if it's a healthy tree and it's a storm and it gets
Right.
blown down, then there's not gonna be civil liability on the property owner's behalf. I don't want anybody to think that the town would or could sustain an action for, an unforeseen, weather-caused accident, say.
So what do you need a motion for this?
No, this was just informational to see if you guys had questions, so then when we do key the requisition and you guys see it, and if we add it to consent agenda, everybody's aware of what it's for. Any more questions for Mr. Core?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Okey-doke. Next one is task order number 9 with the Wooten Company for the wastewater treatment plant annual report. Kayla.
So this is just a work order for the on-call contract we have with Wooten. The pre-treatment annual report is something they do for us annually. They do submit it to the state. Due to some violations that Berry Global had during this past year, which NOVs have been issued, Junior is in the works with Berry getting all of that fixed. It is going to take a little more time to complete the report than in previous years. But the cost is still very in line with what we have budgeted. I think, yeah, the total increase, the total is $6,300. Normally, it's about $3,500, $4,000. Again, an annual report we have to submit to the state for the wastewater treatment plant. It just has to be brought before the board because it is an amendment to the on-call contract. So if it pleases the board and you approve, we can add it to the consent agenda for the next meeting.
So no other action,
Just make a motion to add it to the consent agenda.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion.
Okay. Ms. Maxine? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carries, okay. And last is the task order number 10 with the Wooten Company for the water supply plan review and hydraulic model update.
Same idea, water for Wooten. I do have Ray here, if you would like him to come give some detailed explanation on why we're doing an update to the hydraulic plan. You
Please.
guys like that?
Yeah.
Come on up, Ray.
So, the need for hydraulic model update. As I've told you before, I have done the planning for water for about 10 to 12 years, and it's been a piece of cake. Most of our growth has been residential, slight commercial, very easy to plan for that. We had a hydraulic model update about 3 years ago in preparation for the water tower maintenance. It was instrumental. The model takes the information that the engineers plug in, and it'll run a simulation on water system conditions. If you try to do different things. For instance, during water tower maintenance, we normally get all of our water from Dunn, most of it. We ran a simulation through the model to see if we could get it from Johnston County. During maintenance, the model said we could, so we ran a 3-day trial just to verify it, real life situation, and we were good to go. So the model is a tool that we use to assess potential capacity request. Like I said, it's been about 3 years since our last update. Now that our focus on growth is more industrial, the need for a model is great. I need to be able to rely on that to assess the types of requests we've been receiving for the last year. 200,000 gallons of water a day, 500,000 gallons of water a day, 4 million gallons of water a day. That was an easy one. I didn't need to model for that one, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. We need to get our engineer to update our model, bring it up to current conditions, so that when we get more requests for these large numbers, we will be getting, I'll have good data to rely on to let our potential customer know if they can come to town or not, if we can provide.
Will this model include the new installation of the other water tower that we're talking about, or will we have to pay to update again after the water tower goes up?
So we've already had an assessment on our last model of our potential water tower, so we already know what our conditions are going to be like when we get that tower. So this update will just incorporate that into the other new data that we're going to plug in to it, hopefully.
Brad, does this take into effect all the new housing from Harnett County line all the way up to 50, all the way down, subdivision after subdivision? I know that it's not in our ETJ, a lot of it, and it's not in our city limits. But the water is coming from the same place up through there that's going to be going to all these subdivisions. So does that take away from us, Benson, any at all,
Does it take away?
the supply?
Well, we don't have a contract directly with Harnett County, but I'm glad you mentioned that because through hours and hours and hours of studying, I put together a plan of supply with Dunn, with Johnston County, and potentially with Harnett County into our Diamond Maps GIS model. And this is where the hydraulic model would be just a must to be able to put in that data that I created and see if what I'm thinking will work. And if it don't, then they'll provide suggestions as to what we should do for it to work.
And what Ray's talking about in conversations we've had in meetings with all the capacity usage coming in, we've talked about, hey, can we look at how our water distribution is coming from these different points, and can we adjust that? Can we redirect? And the answer is, we don't know what the pipes will take until we can have the analysis done. And then Ray can take his plan and actually play and plug it all in and see if the system will hold, taking more water from this point, taking less water from this point, and redistributing it to the town as a whole. So that's one of the things I love with this benefit, is we're going to be able to see how we can rework our current water purchasing and distribution to better benefit the town as a whole.
And again, it's been very simple with residential. Even with 177 unit subdivision in town, I can safely say that we can provide the water that a subdivision that size will need. It's the industrial growth that we're focused on, that I want to make sure that when I say we have enough water for you, that we do. And that hydraulic model will give me what I need to make sure of that.
And it's dealing with your pipe size, your water pressure, and all that good
Yeah,
stuff.
that's right. It sure does. It plugs in the greatest detail of your entire system and gives you a very, very accurate projection.
Now, what will the air cost?
It's
19,800 to update it.
Okay, and that is the total cost? I'm like, William, a year from now, 2 years from now, if we get 2 industries in, that is sufficient to handle that, or we have to go back and redo it at another 19,000?
it needs to be updated with our focus on industrial growth annually. So once a year, I need to send in all the data from our updates
That
from.
makes sense, but that won't be at 19,000 a year.
No,
That's a
no.
one-shot deal, and then you upgrade at whatever the cost.
That's exactly right.
The reason it's 19,000 is because we're not doing it in 3 years.
That's it.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly right.
And we've had
Have
a
we even done
boom
it
since
in
then.
the last 3 years?
We
No.
have not, but we have been using the model.
Okay.
And as we've had industrial requests, the numbers I just gave you are actual numbers that we've been requested. I've been contacting our engineer to run assessments using our current model.
Well, I'd rather do it now than get caught with it like we have on some projects.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So you need a motion.
Yes, if we can have a motion to add it to consent agenda, we will add it to next Thursday's meeting.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I make that motion, we add it to the next.
Motion by
Agenda.
Commissioner Chandler. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
That's, so that's it, except for, do we want to go around and see if anybody's got anything specific they want to talk about? Start with you, Caleb.
I am good. Thank you very much.
All right.
I'll just forecast one thing. I know Kim asked me to, probably, well, it'll have to be in April at this point with the public hearing notice requirements. I'm going to be bringing forward a economic development incentive grant for the latest hotel. I'm just putting that on your radar. We'll have the public notices being run this week. Doesn't give enough time to have it in front of you at the next meeting this month, but we'll have that coming forward. It's very similar to what we did with the Hampton Inn Hotel. So just any questions about that, I'm putting it out there to you now, but you'll obviously have the agreement to review with plenty of time. Just letting you know. Any questions, just give me a call.
Anybody? Shoot. Good. Okay.
GFL, have we got them checking behind them, make sure they're charging us that, what they agreed to?
Yes, we are looking at the invoices. We even had conversations about that contract. I think it was today. We've already sent the trash survey out. It's been live. I think we have it posted for a month total. It's still live right now. We're trying to make sure we have everything planned out and crossed so we can put out the new RFP.
Yeah, but
So
6
they've been-
months ago, she stood and told us that she was going to meet the contract, and we would see,
Yeah.
we had a discussion, we would see a drop in our bill right now. I've seen nothing.
There was not a drop because in order to keep bulk pickup, GFL was mischarging us. Brought that to their attention. They went back. They found the amount. They were going to credit our account. With this 1-year extension, their initial figures didn't include continuing bulk pickup. So for them to continue bulk pickup, it washed out the credit, and that's why we are continuing at the same price for the remainder of the 12 months. That is what was in the approved amendment contract that was signed.
Are they owned by electric cities?
No, sir.
Sounds like
That's all I got.
Yeah, that's a sure up, or whatever you call that.
Yes.
A true up.
A rider, it's
True.
20, our trash rider.
Ms. Maxine?
I'm good.
Will?
Yeah, after our meeting on the 24th, about the, when I brought up the roundabout, I met with Jason Grantham from DOT on the 25th, the day after, for about an hour. He handles this roundabout out here, and he was unaware, for whatever reason, as far as the amount of wrecks we've had and where the wrecks, 90% of them took place. And we discussed that, and I talked with him. I said, we know. He explained to me what a mini roundabout was because they couldn't put a full roundabout and what they had to do that. And I said, well, you know, all we're looking for is a safer way of doing business. We know you're not going to come out and take the roundabout up. And he told me that there was a group. DOT had engineers for everything out there, from the roundabout to painting the roundabout, to the signs coming into the roundabout, to the speed limit coming into the roundabout, different divisions. And they had, including himself, he had been out 2 weeks prior and sat for 15, 20 minutes, and he watched what was going on. And he said there is another group of engineers that are coming to do, they know that there is a problem with the roundabout. They've admitted that there is a problem, and they're doing what they need to do. And I told him that as a board, I was trying to get this board together and agree that we have got a problem and we were looking a safer way. And he told me that I needed to get the fire department, the police department, the town, everybody that was involved in it, to write down their ideas and submit it to DOT as far as, do we need to change the signs? We've got too many signs. Do we need to paint the roundabout? Do we need to put up more signs, or do we need to put up flashing signs on some of the yield signs? And I told Kim this, and the very next day, and Kim had already talked with Jason too. But he said, Mr. Chandler, you need pictures. And I told Kim to get Tyler to stand on Church Street and shoot down a picture that everybody could have a copy of. Get on the railroad and shoot back, and get on 50, shoot back toward the railroad, and Parish Drive back. It shows it all. If y'all want to stop and look on your way home or any time, you have got 25 signs on either side and their side of the road, and there's no way. You see some yield signs, but then you don't see the pedestrian walking signs. And their suggestion was, well, the trees were in the way. Well, I have not heard that, but if you take a picture of it, then you'll see what trees are covered, but there's too many signs. You've got an informational sign that tells you 95 this way, 50 this way, 301 this way, and there's a yield sign right up in front of it. But then in front of the yield sign, to let you know there's something, there is a speed limit sign of, I don't know, 25, 35, or 20. We have got 3 different speed limits going into that. And I mentioned that to him. He said, well, you know, the town sets the speed limits on 301 and 50. He said at some point in time we had done that. Maybe it does need to be changed. Maybe we need to go for a universal. It's 20 miles an hour coming from the railroad up. Coming from 50 down, it's 35. Coming from 4 Oaks to Dunn, it's 25 and 25. So you've got three different. If we could decide, hey, I don't really think it's the speed limit that's doing it, because people cannot see the roundabout. You look at it tonight when you go and it's not even raining, or come back when it's raining at night, you can't tell there's anything there. And they said, well, we have put lighting up. Well, we put lighting up at our request for them, but I don't know if it's lighting. I mentioned to him, I said, you go up 242, you got a four-way stop up there, and you got two signs on either one to let you know there's a four-way stop coming up with a flashing light. You go down 50 highway, and before you get to Meta, there's a four-way stop, and you know that stop's coming up because there's lights flashing. I really think it's going to be simple, but we don't need to really overdo it. But some of the signage, if y'all look at it, really needs to come down. There's no way that anybody can come up to that roundabout and see all those signs, especially somebody from out of town, and not know where they're going. Most of our wrecks have happened from Four Oaks side going toward Dunn, because the building on the corner, the Napa store, is a blind area coming up, and people will not check up right there, so that's where the wrecks are happening. He didn't know that, and that's what they were going to come in and take a look at. But I just want us to do our part, because safety's everything, and we're up to around 40 wrecks at that one intersection, and I know for a fact there's nobody else in the state that's got a roundabout that's had that much problem with it. And he suggested, you know how people are in small towns about historical buildings. I said, what historical building? And he said, the Napa store on the corner. They didn't want it moved. I don't know, but as a board, I still say that we need to follow up on this as a police department, because the police may have something entirely different than what I'm thinking, and the fire department may have something entirely different than what any of us, but if we all get on the same page and said, take a look at this, take a look at that, a four-way stop on Dunn Street and Parish Drive, a year and a half now, we've had 0 wrecks. We'll probably have one tonight, but it was just an idea. Try something for 30 days. If it don't work, then try something else.
So a few things. The speed limit. We can, the board, you all can write a letter. Kim sent it in an email. We can draft a letter that says we are requesting to change the speed limit on either 50 or 301 at whatever location. Jason did caution to be exceptionally specific, because if we, the town, are requesting to change the speed limit on the DOT roads, we need to be precise with who, what, when, where, and why. But we can submit that letter for that request if we would like to do that. As far as the signage goes, Jason did send us pictures from multiple angles when he came out and sat that day. He's also had a few other engineers. I think he said one woman sat for 3 hours and watched the roundabout one day. They are coming out and they are assessing, because they do know that there's issues. Same thing he told you. At first they came and he sent them and said it was some town items, some town trees, some town beautification that was obstructing the view. As you said, Will, I did the same thing. I drove through and I said, well, for all the DOT signs that are obstructing the view, you can't really see the roundabout signs themselves. We've sent him those pictures as well, and he has since said, well, you know, you're probably right there as well, because the trees are further back, but like you said, when you get right up on the roundabout, there's all the road signs, and the roundabout sign itself is not distinct. It's not distinguished from the rest. So he did acknowledge that on their part as well. And just like he told you, he told Kim, they're already taking up roundabouts in other places. But as long as the intersections had to be studied to decide to put them in the first place, as the government goes, they're going to have to do their due diligence to study the same thing to decide to spend money to remove it. So again, just to echo what you said, they're aware and they're looking at it, but it's not something that on their end will be a snap decision.
But do you not agree that our organizations that have anything to do with it ought to have it in writing? Please make it safer, or look at these, so we'll have something on record when that Mack truck comes through and kills somebody and they say, well, the town never should have put it there. We didn't put it there.
Correct.
But I think we need to have something, yeah, we knew it was a problem and we have addressed it, and something, we know they're not gonna take it up, or I don't think, he wanted to admit it, but I don't think they'll ever admit that this was not right. They could have tried a left turn lane there and it would have took care of their problem, I think, without wasting the money that they wasted.
Well, I think, again, before they do anything, they're going to do some ad nauseum research on the situation before they make any decisions. But I do agree, I think if each department that has dealings with the roundabout would maybe make a specific list of where we are seeing the issues, maybe even not so much as how we can fix them, that could be a separate, but like the side by Napa with the block view, kind of those things that maybe the engineers aren't seeing just by watching the videos and by watching, seeing the pictures, that could probably be a very useful bit of information to compile to provide the DOT. So when their engineers do come out and they are watching the circle and watching the traffic, they can be cognizant of those specific areas.
Well, it's just like the speed limit to some people is an issue. The speed limit is not an issue to me. If it's an issue to the police department, Greg has come up with a program that he has run for the last 3 or 4 days. And Greg, would you like to, is he still here? Would you like to tell him how many citations you've written and what it slowed down? I'm just saying, if you stop that, we cannot put a police officer out on that roundabout 24/7. Right. So what you have done in the last 2 days, in the last 2 days, as far as writing citations for one thing or another, do you think if you kept it up, maybe we would get a reputation, don't go through the roundabout, or once you quit doing that, 2 weeks from now, are we going to have the very same problem?
Probably.
Do you think it's the speed limit?
No, I don't think it's the speed limit at all.
Well,
I mean, it doesn't help that there's 3 different speed limits coming into one spot, but I don't think that's the cause of the accidents. What we've tried this week, we started Monday morning, was placing an officer pretty much probably at Valero or somewhere in that general area, just watching the traffic circle, and when they see someone that fails to yield or does some other driving behavior that causes problems, they pull them over. Now, if they have, like an expired license or something like that, we'll go ahead and probably cite them for that. But the primary purpose of it is educating the motoring public about how to safely navigate the roundabout. Yield to the cars that are already in the circle, look to your left, stuff like that. Just providing them guidance as to how they can get through there without causing a wreck or being involved in a wreck themselves.
are we educating the townspeople, or are we educating everybody that's coming through? And I'm just
Well,
saying,
yeah, now when they stop the car, they have no idea whether or not they're a town
Right.
resident or not. But what we did was we prepared a sheet, double-sided with rules and suggestions on how to
Right.
navigate the traffic circles and stuff. As of tonight, they've stopped 42 cars and they've issued 4 citations. So they're not out there, just hounding the public. We're really out there to educate the public, not to write tickets. But you're right. If we do it 2 weeks and then stop in 2 weeks, it'll probably be right back where it was. But you're
And I
right. We
don't
can't
know
sit out there all the time.
Who did what out of the 40 citations or whatever you got? I don't know how many of those were local or how
Right.
many out of town. I'm just saying our local people know more about the roundabout now than they did.
Right.
You probably would look back, and most of them were not local, but they were just coming through, and they're coming back through a month from now, they're still not gonna see it. If we don't do something, I think, with the signage.
I don't disagree. In my opinion, which, I mean, doesn't really mean a lot, but my opinion, it's visibility.
Yeah.
You know, there's too many signs, too close together, and the traffic circle and the little islands are not visible enough.
No.
You know, I disagree about the speed limit. I think it ought to be 20. And you know, hey, I get the signage part, but if they're going 20 rather than 35, they can see the signs. They got more chance to see signs.
Yeah.
So then, again, and also, I hear that dead thing about the building. But actually, the two times I've been kind of, I like my hands, I was going from Dunn to Four Oaks that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's coming from houses to 95, and they did a little fishtail going about 35, 40 miles an hour. And I was there, you know, it was really, they were going to come up, and I was going to go. I realized not to go, and I was lucky I didn't. So I think it's every direction, not just,
Yeah. I mean, and slowing people down is not gonna hurt.
that's right.
I just don't feel like that's the primary cause of
I
it.
understand that.
I think people are just in a hurry. I don't know a single soul of a car that goes by my office at 20 miles an hour on West Main Street anyway. Most of them are running 35 and 40. We're just not enforcing the speed on Main Street. I got stopped by a couple walkers 2 days ago on Main Street yelling about trying to cross the
And they
street.
were running over 20.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. So, but no, I mean, I know that we've sent a letter to DOT. I know that this board has sent a letter to DOT. I like the roundabout. I think it's more efficient for me. But whatever y'all think, I don't have any problems with the roundabout. I think people just need to learn how to drive.
Well, look at the signage. They're not gonna move the roundabout. The roundabout will be fine, but if you don't know it's there, you look at the signage and you got 20 signs on either side and it's a big cluster. You can't tell what is what. And if you have got a yield sign on all four corners, which you do, but you can't see them, if you put a flashing light on it to get somebody's attention that there's something coming up, whether it's a roundabout or a hole, slow down. As far as the speed limit goes, I don't think that it's going to make any difference. But the only reason, the 3 different speed limits, doesn't that give your department hell when they're writing a ticket for speed? Well, it's 35 here.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's 20 coming in. If it was all uniform, 25, all 4, wouldn't it help
Certainly.
to write that ticket a little better?
Yeah.
Or 20, I don't care what it is, but I don't
I'll
think,
negotiate 25 with you.
I don't think that's, I don't think the speed limit is the problem though. You
You need
cannot
25,
see
you
it.
2 signs, I give you 2 signs. You get 3 and 2 signs.
All right, there's one. Four different speed limits, how's that?
So I agree with the visibility. We've actually recently purchased some of the little lights that you put on top of new signs, again, like the ones Meadow or what, 27 when they added 4 ways, just to get people's attention. We can talk to DOT and see if they would be okay with us possibly popping some of those on the yield signs for the time being.
Let me ask you something. DOT made it clear that's their highway, 50 and 301. So why don't they provide the signs if we see a need for it and say, look, I really think this would take care of problems, just the visibility of you knowing something's coming up?
I don't have that answer, but I can ask.
I mean, Jason was just terrific in what he did and what he said, and I'm just passing on what he said.
Right.
Get the 3 organizations to write down their concerns, because it may not be my concerns, and I've heard it right here. We've heard speed limit, we've heard everything looks the same, everything's fine. We've heard speed limit ain't gonna be a problem, it's signage, so I think we need to put it all down and send it to Jason and say, these are our concerns.
You know, I didn't know that we controlled the speed limit, or we had anything in
Yeah,
that.
that's
We
new.
can request the speed limit be changed on DOT
But
roads.
see, that's the kind of thing, and I said this before, I'm saying it again, I'll say it every time. Our job is not to save the people's lives, although we want to. Our job is to make sure they don't blame us when
That's
the
it.
bad happens. And
That's
we need
it.
to keep saying it. We need to keep saying it over and over. And we need to make sure that the public, the DOT doesn't, well, they could have change the speed limit, so go ahead and just request it.
But again, he did caution, we need to be, if we take that route, we need to be explicitly specific for what we would like where for any changes to be made. Because when they get that request and it is approved, they will go based on the request. They will not dig any further into the situation. So that's just something to keep in mind if we take that route.
Well, let me ask you something since Chief is up here. I know you're talking about the roundabout, but we've got a more serious situation right here at Rite Aid with that church giving out food. It is ridiculous around there. Somebody is really gonna get hurt. It is lined up and wrapped around all the way. You cannot see how to cross that road.
Closes it down to one lane. You can only get one car through there.
I know, and it's really dangerous. And so I don't know what we're gonna have to do about that, but we need to be doing something about that as well, because it is a nightmare. And it might change since the weather, the time has changed.
Right.
But it was dark and you can barely, I mean, it's unreal, because they don't start now until about 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, I don't know why they changed the
I
time
don't
of
know
it,
why
but-
either, but it's a hot mess up in there, I'm gonna tell you.
Well, one of the options would be to have them line up like they do the Mule Days Parade, have them go down Lee Street and shoot off down Morris Avenue, and that would keep them off of Church Street entirely, because they could come in that back entrance to the church and then exit out the front. I mean, if you'd like me to go talk to the minister, we
Well,
can
I
see if
would
we can
like
work
for
out
you to,
something.
because I'm telling you, it is very dangerous. You cannot, I mean, the lights almost blind you when you're trying to get across to go home or go anywhere on that street
Yeah.
down toward homes and stuff, and
Uh-huh.
it is really a bad situation. And they park all in the road.
Yeah.
I mean, halfway across the road that you can't see cars coming from either way.
Right. Okay, we'll address that.
Thank you.
Well, that's one day a week. You've got another one that you can go through at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the parking has blocked off Parish Drive. You can't see what's coming at the stop from Elm to Parish, and you know just exactly what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. 200 cars parked on the road, and that's, what, 4 nights a week? Sometimes 5. So, I think whatever you start, you may start something big. I mean, if you're gonna get them off the road, there's some that's parked all night.
On the
Yeah,
south side.
Oh, yeah. It takes away from, you come down from Main Street
Mm-hmm.
toward the fire department, there's no way. They go all the way to J. Don's, come up, all the way down, and then on both sides, down Market.
All right, we'll look at it.
Well, no, you just take a look at it.
I just want to say to Officer Liscombe, thank you for being here, and welcome to the town of Benson, and thanks for you and your family. And he's not even here anymore, is he? He's already gone. So there that is. I'm done.
He did look really excited, I'm just gonna say.
Thanks for being here. He's gone. So I'm done.
Anybody want to make my favorite motion?
I'll make that motion that we adjourn.
All in favor? So moved.